Well, the issue of the border crisis in the US is exploding, with thousands of illegal immigrants pouring over the southern border each week. But perhaps you could ask, what should Americans have expected after every single Democratic candidate supported decriminalising border crossings?
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offence rather than a crime to cross a border without documentation. Can we keep the hands up so we could see them?
And yet Joe Biden now has the audacity to blame Donald Trump for this crisis.
Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. It's time for Republicans in the Congress to show a little courage, to show a little spine.
It's quite the take. Well, Hudson Institute Senior Fellow John Lee joins me now. Welcome to the program, John. Look, this is emerging as one of the leading issues in the presidential election.
Well, I would say it's one of the top two issues. It's this issue and it's cost of living. You know, you've got 250,000 people per month going through the border. That makes it a major political issue, and it's a real problem for Joe Biden.
What did you think of his response there? The Democrats now trying to blame the Republicans for this.
Well, certainly a morally creative response, but Joe Biden really has to own this. Look, for all Donald Trump's faults, he did largely control the border. He put pressure on Mexico. He had more patrols, and he had tougher rules against people who had made it into American territory. Biden, like the Democrats asked him to do, he dismantled some of that. And once the narrative gets out that America is a soft place, an easy place to go to, we see what happens. Look, Australia has dealt with this, not at the same scale, but once that narrative and once the message gets out, it's very difficult to actually control it. So Biden has to own this.
Look, Nikki Haley says she's not going to quit the Republican nomination race no matter what happens in South Carolina, but it looks like the pressure might be getting to her. She actually became emotional during a speech yesterday, and there's now discussion over whether she should have become so emotional and whether this is the tough image that a future president would want to project. What do you think about this debate? Is it sexist? Is it fair enough?
Look, if I could vote, I would vote for Nikki Haley as American president. So certainly I think she's the best candidate. The problem is that a lot of Americans, and Republicans in particular, they feel under siege. That's the impression I get when I go to the United States. And when you're under siege, you instinctively want a strong, tough leader. Now, Donald Trump is a lot of bad things, but he's the kind of guy that bats away everything that's thrown at him. You've got to say, from that point of view, he's a pretty tough leader. Now, Nikki Haley is as well, but the problem is that perceptions matter in politics, and you can bet that Donald Trump will play this up unfairly, but he will play this up to paint Nikki Haley as weak, unfortunately.
Look, Donald Trump has spoken in a Fox News interview about who could serve in his VP role. He actually seemed to emphasise Tim Scott. What do you think about the list of candidates that he outlined there?
I would prefer Tim Scott because, you know, Tim Scott is a pretty moderate, sensible Republican. He doesn't scare people. And just as we saw with Mike Pence in the first Donald Trump term, Donald Trump, being who he is, needs a straight guy as vice president. People need to feel confident that there's someone in the room next to him that carries that traditional or more moderate Republican view and temperament. If he goes with Vivek or some of the other people that have been mentioned, I think that would
Ron
be both
DeSantis.
Political. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a political and a policy mistake. He needs a traditional, moderate Republican from a temperamental sense.
Well, when I spoke to Steve Bannon on the show a couple of weeks ago, he said that Trump really needs a woman as the VP, but we'll see. We'll see if he gets the candidacy first. John Lee, thank you so much for joining me.